house of worship, we know, is supposed to be a welcoming, safe environment, but this peace was shattered, we know, yesterday when a shooter killed 2 children and injured 17 others. This morning, we are speaking with a violence prevention expert who says the number of shootings at houses of worship is sadly growing. Dr. Jillian Peterson joins us now. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. We know you're the co-founder of the Violence Prevention Project based here in the Twin Cities, studying school shootings and gun violence in hopes of preventing future attacks. So tell us about mass shootings. We know they have become far too common in the U.S. What have you learned studying cases, and are there commonalities you have noticed in these mass shootings?
There are really kind of consistent patterns that you see. So we've been tracking every mass shooting going back to 1966 in the United States, and we code them on hundreds of different variables, looking at the perpetrators, the victims, the locations, the firearms. What we see is the perpetrators tend to be isolated and alone, men in their early 20s. They are typically actively suicidal. They study other shooters and they see themselves in these shooters that came before them. And then they target places typically that they kind of blame for their heartache, with a goal of getting their message out to the world, this message of hatred. So they typically leave behind something to be found. So what we see in this case is so consistent with what we've seen over and over and over again.
Wow, that certainly gets your attention hearing that. Places of worship and schools, we know, have become the targets for these attacks. Yesterday, the scene was a combination of a school and a church. So what does your research show about why these spaces in particular are often the target?
Yeah, we've seen a growing number of homicides occurring at houses of worship in particular. And they're designed to be these open, welcoming spaces where people come in and they're safe and they seek sanctuary. They're not meant to be secure. That's not the goal of a house of worship. But it makes them very vulnerable when violence hits because they just don't have those systems in place. Schools have done, I think, a lot better job at coming up with security procedures. The problem is that these shooters tend to be insiders. When elementary schools are targeted, it's almost always a former student. So the perpetrator is really kind of well-versed in how the school operates and where the weaknesses are, which is what we saw again in this case.
Right, and of course everyone is asking the question, how can we prevent future attacks? And in your research, in your thinking, is there anything that you can kind of pinpoint, or a couple of things that we could do in the future so this stops?
Yes, our research shows that there's always warning signs. There's always signs of a crisis. The perpetrators almost always tell someone they're thinking about this or post something on social media. So I think we'll see what emerges in this case, what warning signs there were, but people need to know when they see, when they hear, who do they report to, and how do we intervene before this happens? You know, in Minnesota, we have extreme risk protection orders. If someone's threatening violence or self-harm, we can remove their firearms for a period of time. So there are strategies that if we know someone is struggling and is thinking about this, we can intervene before it happens. And then, of course, there's the access to firearms, which it's unclear at this point how he legally purchased them and if he was, you know, correctly doing that. So I think we'll wait to see all of those details emerge in the next couple of weeks. Well,
we appreciate so much your insight, helping us. We're all trying to come to some kind of terms with why this happened and the sadness of all of this. Thank you for your insight, Dr. Peterson. We appreciate it so much from the Violence Prevention Project. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.